And welcome to another episode of the Church Solutions Podcast, episode number 345. I think. And
Ish,
looked. Yeah, somewhere in that
ish,
area.
maybe. I think 45 or 46. I'm not positive.
Yeah, we'll find out later. I should have checked beforehand. Well, my name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Michael Gray.
And Steve Lacy's normally with us, but he's helping a customer because that's who we are. We help
right.
customers. We do it. We have live support, in case you didn't know that. So
barely alive.
We're alive. We're alive and kicking. All right, Michael, how are you today?
Great. How are you, Phil?
I'm doing well. So we are, this is recorded here in the summer. We generally get this out pretty quick. So this is kind of mid-July here for us and in Tucson. And in Arizona, our schools start, when do they start? Usually like the first week of
August now. Yeah, always. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I grew up in Ohio and we always started in September, like the day after Labor Day. So a lot of people listening, maybe, Midwest, Eastern, whatever. So you have a little bit more time than we would here. But today we're going to talk about how to launch or relaunch your church online for back to school. And this may go for a couple episodes here. We have a lot of content, which Michael has put together here. So let me ask you, Michael, and by the way, Michael, you've been on here enough where people probably know you, but you've been involved in ministry for many years on staff at churches and you do other things as well, but you've been with us now for quite a while. So let me ask you this, why back to school? Why are we talking about relaunching for back to school? Why not maybe the first of the year or something?
A few years ago, while I was on staff, our planning cycle for what we were talking about on Sundays usually was pretty loose, and we kind of wing it. And sometimes you come up with a topic, pretty close to the date that you're going to talk about it, or a sermon text, etc. And what we discovered through other people's input, and we did some conferences as well as some training, and we discovered that there are certain times of year when people have a different mindset about church. And what I mean is people who don't go to church. So what we discovered, and then we tried it, and then we proved it true, is that for back to school, and after the new year, people are most susceptible to hearing the truth, hearing the gospel, hearing the message about Jesus. So the chances, if you were to give somebody an invite card or a digital invite or invite on Facebook or whatever that might be, there's a higher chance that they would accept that invite because they're thinking, I need to get my life straightened out. I need to get my life right with God, or I need to get my family into church so that they can have the opportunity to discover who Jesus is. Yeah. So knowing that, and for many years, we have proved it true that statistically, when you ramp up your talks in those windows, in the context of who you are and who God is and all of those things, it really makes a dramatic difference in how many people make a decision in those windows of back to school and New Year's.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. You might think New Year's, but many people didn't think about back to school, but I think you're absolutely right. It's a cycle that starts and everybody kind of gets around. And I've seen that in my churches and stuff over the years. Yeah, we've just seen more people show up during those times. So, all right. So go ahead.
No, it's people are both times. Mom says, we got to get better organized. We got to do this back to school thing and we got to do it better. And and so all of those ideas are pointing towards an invite to church.
Yeah. All right. So let's just jump into this a little bit. We're talking about how to launch or relaunch the church online back to school. That's what we're specifically talking about, church online. So we've talked about why we would consider doing this. for the back to school deal. So let's start with some of the basics. I mean, what would be the first thing we should do?
Well, I think the framework of this has to, and we've discovered this because we have so many clients, is if the pastor is not fully behind and casting that vision from the stage, the rest of the folks are going to do what pastor does. So if he's not casting that vision of, and we're talking specifically about a church online back to school launch or relaunch. Right. I think it's a great idea because it's an easier ask than come in my building and go to church versus watch church online from the comfort of your recliner. Two different invite kind of things there. But if pastor's behind that, he's casting vision that, everybody spends eternity somewhere, and they're seeking, they would like to come to church somewhere and get to know God better. What better way than for you to make an invite and make that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It really is true. Your key leaders, your senior leader, he or she really needs to be casting vision, and not just once in a while, but it really needs to be kind of embedded in almost every message that you do. Yeah. You can easily embed your vision, or at least parts of your vision, in your different sermons and messages. So it starts with the key person, and then the key leadership team needs to also echo that stuff. So let's say they're doing that, and we're casting vision. Okay, we're moving forward here. So let's talk about, you got 12 points here. We're not sure we're going to get all 12 here, but
we'll get as far as we can at least.
We can continue it. So let's talk. The first thing you say here, and I want to ask you more specifics about this. You say identify all your communication tools and prioritize them. So what's a communication tool?
Well, anything digital, written, print, that you can communicate with your audience.
Okay. So it could be your social media stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Social media, messaging, text,
website too, right? Because people would go to your website.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a long list. If you take the time, if you haven't already take the time at some point and prioritize it. It can change based on the audience, but most of the time it's going to stay pretty much in order. So you really only have to do it once when you're trying to promote things, but know what all your tools are. Otherwise, you're going to miss some really big opportunities.
And prioritizing means, looking at, okay, what's the most important, or what's the most effective, maybe?
Yeah. Which ones get people to move the most? And but you also, in our world today, you don't want to leave any gaps out, because everybody listens on a different channel. You may have somebody who's an Instagrammer, and somebody else who's a Twitter person, and somebody else who only reads the newsletter. So you're leaving people out if you don't do something fairly comprehensive.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Number 2, write out some good ways to invite to church online. So be specific to church online. Some will attend live anyway. Live attendance is another campaign for the new year, the follow-up. So you say, write down some good ways to invite church online. So when you say write down some good ways, so you're talking about make a list or something where you throw out some ideas on how, what would be a good way to invite somebody.
Yes.
What's an example? What I mean, give me something that I can.
Yeah, one of the things that really helps people is if they hear and can repeat a simple way. Hey, I know going to a church for the first time might be a little bit tough, but we have a great, easier way to do that. You can do it from home. Here's a card and an invite to join me this Sunday for church online. Okay. And the important next piece would be make sure to attend church online with your guest so that you're there to chat with them.
Yeah, that's kind of like the old days when we say when you invite somebody to actually walk in your facility, you'd want to be there to greet them and even sit with them maybe. All right, so come up with some creative ways to invite people to church online. So, and that takes a little bit of time. Sit down with several people,
Yep.
get some input from certain people, certain leaders, or some key people that you could talk to. All right, so that's good. So, all right, so number 3, stage announcements. So when you say stage, you're talking about on the platform,
That's right.
the podium, depending on your culture, your language.
Yeah.
Stage announcements weekly, even after the launch. So in other words, what you're saying here is we've gone through, let's say we've gone through all this process, which we haven't gone through here yet, but let's say we've done it, we've looked ahead and we've seen everything here. So you're saying don't just do a one and done. You're saying, which is very common, right? All right, we did that. Let's move on now. But no, you're saying keep at it, keep reminding people, do it from the platform, do it from the podium, if you want to use that word, the pulpit. So in other words, keep it up, keep the attention going.
We all know, if you haven't been aware yet, we live in a paradigm where people come to church maybe twice a month, some once a month. So if you announce something once and they miss their day, a good 2/3 of your audience completely missed that announcement. So you got to be repetitive, and we'll talk about a little bit more about how repetitive a little bit later.
Well, and even if they come on a regular basis, people still need to hear it. I've said this before because of my radio background. By the time we got tired of a song that we would play, as a disc jockey, you'd be playing maybe the same song, multiple times a day. By the time we got sick and tired of it, many of our listeners were just now catching on. Hey, I want to hear that again, And I think that's true even for people, that come to church on a regular basis. They just need to hear whatever that is, the challenge, the vision, the task, those things. They need to hear it multiple times. It's just like you said, human nature. All right. So make sure you make announcements, keep it going, keep it fresh, keep it going, even after you've done the official launch. And then number 4, the power of your newsletter, the power of your newsletter. You've got here 4 weeks optimal, 4 weeks. So you mean 4 weeks of talking about this in your newsletter? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And the power of newsletter is, if I talked about attendance. So let's say you're a church of 200. That's who 200 show up on Sunday. Right. The reality is, if you're a church of 200, more than likely, if you're at or near a city, your actual people that attend your church is probably 800. They just don't all attend at once.
Okay.
So,
I see
it's all of your contact list. Some of those are Creasters, Christmas and Easter. Some of those come once a month. Some come once every 2 months, 6 months, whatever that is. But it's a larger group of people than you could ever get with a stage announcement. But a newsletter is one thing that everyone is at least going to see the headline of if you send it out. And so it is still the most powerful tool that gets in front of the most people, if you can keep it interesting enough. Yeah.
So the last church I was a part of, we had 7,500 people sometimes show up on a weekend on a Sunday morning. And I remember thinking the exact same thing. I remember thinking, if everybody would show up at once, we'd have 400 people.
You'd never fit.
We'd never be able to fit. Yeah, we couldn't fit, I mean, and because we'd have different people every weekend show up, and then they'd come back after a few weeks or whatever. And so I think that's true with a lot of churches. There's people
lots. And so you got to build your communication of events, big events, launching a campaign in and around. What are the tools that get you the most reach and in front of the most people?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So you say at least hit it four weeks in a row
at a minimum, and that's 4 weeks prior to. You may continue another week or two into the campaign. If it's, for instance, back to school is really about a 6 to 8 week window. Yeah. And so you could continue to plug along and continue to do more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit. Let's move to a different tool here, newsletter primarily, but you've also got point number 5 here, blogs or video blogs, if you have them.
Yeah.
I think blogs are really important for a lot of different reasons. I think even it helps your SEO if you do it right for your website. But
Yep.
video blogs, I think, are good as well. So let's elaborate a little bit about that. Blogs or video blogs?
Yeah.
What are they?
Well, blog is actually written text, and a vlog or video blog is YouTube or somewhere else where you're, online, maybe live, maybe recorded.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is a podcast. Same kind of thing. If you do that as a church, maybe pastor does one, or some of the staff does a vlog or podcast. This is another avenue. This is another resource to say, hey, today our podcast is brought to you by Church Online launch at our church. And you just give that plug and say, hey, don't forget to go to this URL, go to this website, whatever that may be, to get people in the pipeline of being part of the invite process for your new or renewed Church Online launch campaign.
Yeah, yeah. And we're talking about launching Church Online, although you could use this for some other things too that we're talking about here.
Everything.
Yeah, you really could. But
this is just a launch, and you just put what you're launching in front of it, and there you go.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So this next one, blogs, video blogs, use them. I encourage you to create one if you don't. But number 6 is social media. And I like, speaking of video, I like, we did this with Jeff Love, your pastor. He was my pastor too for years, where we would just take my iPhone out and do a really quick video of Jeff for maybe a minute or 2 at the most, talking about whatever it was he was talking about. We've shared that here on this podcast before. So you could easily create video and you could post it on your social media. So you've got social media, daily image, text and video content that attendees can share as an invite to others. Now that's a good point, because they could share this. If you have social media, you should have something, and you can create it where they can share it with other people. So it multiplies the outreach, right?
Absolutely. So you'd go back, you'd say, hey, Jeff, I want this one to be a straight up invite, as if you bumped into an old friend, and he goes, hey, friend, I'm so glad I ran into you. I want you to invite you to this weekend, blah, 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 and done. Very quick. Yeah. And then everyone can share that as an invite to their friends list or whoever they want to invite. Same thing if you were to use an image or text. Those can be official invites that you say, hey, I'd like to invite you, or create a Facebook event. I forgot to put that one down, and people can share that and invite people to the actual Facebook event.
Oh yeah, that's right. Facebook has that event deal that is supposed to give you more traction. And so that's, and everybody has Facebook, right? I mean, there's at least 500 or 600 people out there that have Facebook.
Yes.
All right. So social media, very important to do when you're launching this thing. The next one is text or messaging systems. Now, I think you're the one that said this, brought this out. I probably took credit for it, but you were talking about how text messages actually have a very high open rate. I guess that's the term you want to use.
Yep.
Very high. Many people will maybe not read their email, or read it 2 months later, or it goes in spam or whatever it is. But text messages are actually a very effective way to communicate with people.
Yeah, they are. If you look at the data, email campaigns, the open rate is 15 to 20% of people opening it. If you're looking at text, you're in the 90 percentile of people who they respond to text. They see text. They don't respond as much as they see it. But the chances of it are much higher of it being said and read. I I detest it. But if you notice right now, if you are at all signed up for any political party anywhere, you're probably getting bombed with text saying vote for this dude or that girl or whatever.
Yeah.
And it can be very annoying, but it can also, in this case, be something that is very encouraging and very inviting.
Yeah, you can tailor it to make it encouraging and make it so it's not so annoying. There's there's push notifications too if you have an app. I mean, we have an app, churchapplive.com is our app in addition to streaming church.tv, which is our company for streaming. So we have push notifications. And so if your members have an app that's connected to your church, you could always send them a push notification.
Absolutely. It's another way in the newer digital era to send a notification to somebody's phone and say, hey, don't forget this weekend, invite somebody to church. This is the challenge from the pastor, invite at least 2 people this week or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Very good. All right. So number 7 was text or messaging systems. And then number 8 is support flyers and invitation cards. So elaborate a little bit about what are these? What is a support flyer and what's an invitation card?
Well, support flyer would just be something that is a reminder to people who attend church. Hey, here's a flyer. Don't forget, here's your instructions. Here's the link. Here are the tools to share this content or make a digital or other invite. Invite card is what it says. It's literally got maybe a QR code on it and a link that says join us for church online, and you have that printed and you can just hand that to somebody and say, hey, you don't even have to put clothes on to come to church. Here's an invite, and or whatever it is that you would use.
Church online, we're talking
to somebody. Here, you might get into trouble for that. Don't do that at work.
Unless you're a nudist church. But hey, let's not go there.
No,
we're not that kind of a. So those are really good, effective things. You can hand those out and give those to people. Now, here's something that I think, and you don't have this on your list, but I still think, I haven't tested it for a while, but years ago, I used to send postcards out. Outreach Marketing was one of the companies. There's multiple companies out there, but I liked Outreach Marketing because I liked a lot of their designs and they had fun little things on the cover of the postcard. And then on the back, you'd have some information about the church. I still think those are effective because people still get mail. They still get snail mail, and they go out their mailbox and they get it. And if they're like me, you go out to the mailbox, and then as you're walking back to the house, stubbing your toe or something, you're looking through your mail. And, you mentioned political stuff going on right now. This is the season for, the elections and stuff for the midterms. I'm getting political postcards. Now, I don't really care, so it's not a big deal to me. But, if you had a nicely done postcard, you can do bulk mailing. It's still there today. It still exists. People still get mail. And they might take your thing and go, oh, this is kind of interesting. I ought to think about this. And they throw it on the coffee table or whatever it is, if you have a coffee table. And it's there for a while and people still see it. We're talking about launching stuff here. And although you could use this for other things too. And we've talked about this before. One of my churches that I was a part of, we helped start. This guy used to use, there's a publication here in Tucson. Well, there was the Dandy Dime, and then there's the Little Shopper, but there's those little magazines that are kind of on newspaper print, and you have, stuff to buy in them and services in them. But he would get either the front cover or the back cover for an ad. They would sell ads in the front and the back, and he always wanted to get the back cover. He didn't want to get inside the deal. So, but again, those things still exist. And you might think, well, we're digital now, but you know what? People still look at that stuff. So anyhow, I got us off track, but that's just
that's all right. That's all right. But there is an important piece there, and that is I'm glad you mentioned the postcard piece, because we did that. And so what we learned is if we mailed out postcard a little bit before the pastor mentioned it from the stage, Then when he mentioned it from the stage, he would say, a postcard has gone out to your friends, because you can do a zip code or a proximity. And he said, they've already gotten a postcard. You can mention it and say, hey, did you get that postcard in the mail? I wanted to invite you to be my guest to attend Church Online next week. So they've already seen a printed postcard. Now you're mentioning it. They may see a digital invite too. We want it to be a snowball to where people are thinking, oh, I've been thinking about going to church. I've been thinking to get my family back in church.
Right.
And there are all these cues then that are bringing them to you.
Yeah, I think what do they call that? Synergy, I think, or whatever. But yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're almost out of time here, but I think we can get done here. Let's go to point number 9. Sure. Streaming links and QR codes. Yeah, I remember QR codes have been around since the 90s, and they were pretty much dead. But then when the pandemic hit, all the restaurants
came back in a rage.
Yeah, they did. The restaurants had QR codes and stuff at a table. So tell us very quickly, streaming links. What do you mean by putting streaming links into your launching package?
Well, if you don't give people a web address to come to church online, it's going to be really hard. They might be able to search you and find it, but it's going to be very much easier if you provide a link or a QR to get them there.
Yeah. That's the bottom line. That's really what it's all about. But you'd be surprised how well we know. You and I know, because we work with churches all the time, and we go to look at their live stream and we can't find it because it's not easily put on their website.
It's
buried somewhere, a bunch of stuff. All right, quickly, number 10, involve the kids. So flyers promoting church online. How do you involve the kids with church online?
Well, you involve them with everything, because nobody invites better than kids. They'll invite grandma and grandpa and the neighbor and everybody else. If you provide them with some invitation, there's a good chance they're going to get some people to do whatever they're asking them to do. Because if you're at all like me, kids can ask me, my nieces and nephews can ask me just about anything, and I'll do it. I'm a sucker for kids. And we're not trying to manipulate them or manipulate people, but it works.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you want kids to be involved in your life, and you want kids to be involved in a healthy relationship, a healthy church,
And you're communicating a correct example of what being a follower of Jesus is about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Wrapping up here, point number 11, people, and we kind of touched on this earlier, but people need to see and hear things 7 to 12 times to be able to move and to take action. And that's been proven in marketing and the gospel and everything else. They need to hear and see it.
Yeah. They need it in multiple formats, multiple times. So the more media and personal invites and videos you can put in front of people, the greater chance that they're actually going to show up to church live or church online.
Yeah. And the last point here as we wrap up, don't forget, online attenders that love how you do church will become live attenders if you invite and they are in your area. So we've seen this happen. All of us have, right? I mean, somebody's watching online, they get a good look at what you guys are doing, their style of your worship, style of your preacher, how you do church. And if they're in the area, chances are they will eventually come into the doors because everybody's looking for relationships, and Church Online is a great tool. And obviously that's one of the things we do here at streamingchurch.tv. But we also know that, it's all about connecting people to God and connecting people to each other.
That's
for
sure.
Really important. All right, good. Okay. So we've got through the 12 points and we're out of time.
Out of time.
So next week we're going to do something else. Do we know what that is yet, or are we going to hold that off for a little bit?
I think we're actually going to do some. It's going to be a whole idea session. So it's going to be some ideas about how to build your ads and campaigns and flyers and all kinds of great and sometimes kooky ideas, and in order to get people involved in this process.
Yeah, I love kooky ideas, as you know. All right, good. Thank you, Michael Gray. It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
And folks, thank you for listening or watching us here. The Church Online podcast is available anywhere you get your podcast. Subscribe to us and you'll never miss a podcast. And as always, we'd love to get your feedback. You can send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. On behalf of Steve Lacy, who's not here, and Michael Gray, who we've just heard from, I'm Phil Thompson. Please take care of yourselves and each other. We'll catch you again on another episode of the Church Solutions Podcast.